All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today, I have Victoria Wieck. She is an entrepreneur, a speaker, and soon to be author. She's publishing a book and she's a podcaster. Welcome to the Oh Hell No podcast, Victoria. It's so nice to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited and I love the title of your podcast. That's how I feel about 4 times a day, sometimes.
So
So
good.
you said something I feel every day. So go ahead.
Absolutely. So when we get to that part where you have to share your moment, you won't have to search deep and hard for it.
Right. It's sitting right in front of my face. Yeah.
Right.
Very convenient.
So I like to peel back the layers of my guest and slowly reveal their journeys to my listeners. So let's talk a little bit about your early beginnings. So you immigrated to this country from South Korea, and I wanted to know, how old were you when you came here?
I was about 13, going on 14. So very impressionable years, at that time. You're old enough to kind of see things, understand what's right or wrong, what's pretty, not pretty, and understand that you don't kind of fit in, but you're not old enough to kind of do anything about it. So
Yeah. So when you were a little bit younger, what did you dream of becoming, like when you were an adult? Like what did you see yourself doing when you grew up?
yeah, it's funny. So in South Korea at that time, it's a little bit like that today as well, all over Asia.
Mhm.
Moms, typically not me, but most moms culturally prefer boys. So if you look at, adoptions, like a lot of Korean kids were adopted like right after the war. You look at all the adoptions, about 95% of them were girls. So the moms would give up the girls and not the boys. So my dad had 4 children, 4 girls. He had 5 kids, 4 girls and 1 boy, and he wanted a better life for his daughters. He wanted them to have more options than just trying to look for Mr. Right, from birth. So I grew up, in that limited environment where you couldn't really go out and do work as a businesswoman or whatever. I always dreamt of just being an artist. I wanted to be like Van Gogh, have just express my feelings and just become a great painter that people would remember me by long after I was dead. So and that even was kind of like very kind of daring. People used to kind of laugh at me whenever I would say that.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you wanted to be an artist. Did you draw? Did you like art?
Yes, I was actually, what I remember, I didn't love school. I didn't, I later on, much later, like when I was an adult, grown up adult, and I was actually, I had my own children, is when I was diagnosed with dyslexia. But I didn't like school. I didn't like the structure of school. I also didn't like how they put everybody in one box. Like, you got to excel in everything. You got to get A's and everything. I just wasn't good at math. There was a lot of things I wasn't good at.
Mhm.
But I loved my alone time, even when I was back in South Korea. So, and we lived right by the beach. So, I used to like really like paint the sunsets and draw. So, but I was told, way back when, that you need to, in order for you to be successful, like especially when I came to America, you have to get those hyper educated, get those degrees, become a doctor, lawyer, CPA or something to fast track your life. And so yeah, I didn't love school, and I always wanted to be an artist, but I was told not to pursue that. So
Mm. Yeah, people always tend to tell you you can't make money as a writer, you can't make money as an artist, and it's so not true, right? As we find out.
well, my dad used to tell me artists don't make any money until they die. So they die broke usually, he said. Yeah.
Right. So, growing up as an immigrant in this country, when do you think that you finally felt like you settled in here?
You know, um, that's interesting because back in 1970s, life was pretty rough here for all Americans. We went through 60s was all the very, tumultuous civil rights movement. Country was quite divided. And then we went through the anti-war movement, with the Ohio, Kent State, all this stuff was going on. And when I came here, I didn't really think that we were going to deal with like racial tensions because, you know, in Korea, everybody that I knew was Korean. So there was like no different races, right? So I didn't really, that was something we didn't count on. And also, we believe that you come to America, the girls could be whoever they wanted to be. And I found out that at that time there was definitely a very big thick glass ceiling. You know, most women here in America didn't go to work outside the home at that time.
Yeah.
So really, I don't know, like it was like a kind of a little bit of a shock, you
Mm.
know, a little shock. There were so just getting used to a whole other culture. But you know, as an immigrant, you always have to honor your home country's traditions, which were very different than, you know, America.
Right.
And so during the day, I wanted to kind of fit in with the American kids, you know, kind of do what you want. Then you come home and you become this very submissive child
Yeah.
that, you know, so it's rough. But I would say when I went to college, you know, and I was getting my own kind of making a living on my own. And I felt like I was finally getting ahead. Like I got the same degrees that all the other kids got. So I thought that like I had a decent future. Then I found out that the future I actually worked so hard for and I got wasn't the future I wanted. So to kind of be careful what you wish for when you get it.
Yeah. So I just want to say, my parents were immigrants too. They came here from Jamaica, which is the Caribbean, and I totally understand what you're saying because I was born here, but my culture is different.
Right.
So when I'm in school, I'm, blending in with the American kids, and then when I'm at home, it's like totally different. We eat different
Right.
foods, the culture is different. So I totally get I can identify with what you're saying. Um, so going to college, getting a degree, thinking that you're going to go out into the world and you're going to have this fascinating career and you're going to be happy. What happened? When
Yeah.
did you realize that this is not the career for me? And what career was it?
Well, so I got my undergraduate degree in economics. You know, I went to UCLA, which was you know, for California girls, it's a very prestigious school. Went there, got my 4-year degree, and then I couldn't really see myself, you know, as the manager of a bank or escrow officer. All these jobs that I was given, that I was, you know, that I supposedly qualified for to interview. I didn't see myself working like with numbers, which, you know, I wasn't very good at it. And so I then went ahead and got my MBA, just like I worked all these part-time jobs up to that point. I went, I got my MBA across the street at USC, which is a rivalry school. And, you know, and I thought, I don't really want to go and get any more schooling, but I didn't, I did get a half scholarship there and the other half were grants. And I thought, you know what, I think I can kind of get used to this marketing thing, you know, because marketing, there's advertising, there's promotions, there's all this stuff that's not numbers. And I thought I could kind of get used to that, you know? And then so I took my marketing classes very seriously. I took all these classes. But one day my professor, one of the professors, you know, took me aside and he told me, you know, I gotta tell you, you're the hardest working girl I ever met. Because I was still working like full time out off campus and I was still taking these double load.
Mhm.
But I'm just going to tell you, you should have a backup plan because you are just not going to ever be good at marketing.
Mm.
So I said, well, why do you think I'm not going to be good at marketing? So he kind of told me I didn't understand the nuances of, you know, marketing takes a lot of finesse. You know, it's not an exact science like a math numbers, like a financial statement would be.
Yeah.
And that I didn't understand the cultural difference. There's a lot of the things that I just didn't understand. I was never, you have to get into the emotions of a person before you can market. So I then quickly switched my major to finance. And then I realized like I was like one class away from getting a master's degree in marketing by that point.
Mhm.
So I actually graduated with a dual track. And then I did get my job in marketing in a jewelry company. And, you know, I commuted 90 minutes each way because LA, you know, the traffic is crazy out here.
Yeah.
So I did that. And, you know, I did pretty well. And I got, you know, great, what I would consider a pretty good salary.
Mhm.
And then when I got a promotion, I started, you know, I became the director of marketing for this company.
Wow.
I realized I was like working. about, I would say 10 to 12 hours a day there. And plus now I got a 3 hour commute between coming and going. So then I realized, you know what? When I first came to America, I went from having unlimited time with my mom. My mom's, was a stay-at-home mom, to never seeing my mother. My mom had two jobs. Both of my parents had two jobs each. They left at 6 o'clock in the morning for this. They worked like 7 to 1 p.m., 7 to 3 shift, and then like again like 4 to 11 p.m. shift. Like right. So I didn't see them. So I said to myself, you know what? I became like a parent to my siblings like overnight when I was like 13 years old. So I didn't have a childhood. And I realized I was doing the same thing to my kids because now I was going to have to hire a nanny to take care of my kids while I went to work. And I was leaving at 6:30 in the morning and coming home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
So I said to myself, you know what? That's not, money is okay, but that is not the life that I dreamt of.
Right.
More than anything, I want to be a mom to my kids. And a lot of my friends were like, the best way I can take care of my kids is if I can get this hyper, high, great paying jobs. And I'm only going to work so many years. And so that I can provide for them. They could have the nice car. They could go to college. They could do all this stuff. But, the kids don't wait until you get your career settled. So I decided I'm just going to go ahead and take a chance and start my own business. Even if all I could do was make like $2,000 a month, I was willing to do that.
So you said that you found a job working for a jewelry company and you were doing marketing for that company.
Yeah.
Is that when you fell in love with jewelry? Or did you have interest in jewelry before then?
I did have interest in jewelry before that, because, and it was interesting because in Korea, unlike in the Caribbean, they went through several wars there, and Korea was used as like the gateway between Japan and China because it's just right in between the two.
Mhm.
So during the World War II, Korea was quite devastated, and then after that, they had a civil war between North and South Korea. So all that time when my ancestors had to flee the country, flee their cities and all that stuff, they took was like a little box of jewelry that number one, they were, kind of inheritance for them. And secondly, they told the history of their family, so I was able to trace my family history ancestry to like the year 1310. And the jewelry piece told like, when my great 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 aunt 16 generations back got married to so and so, she got this little jade piece. So I was like told all these stories, and I thought how fascinating, you
Yeah.
know and so then when I came to America, as you know, America is such a young country, and they didn't have these things. They didn't have like your grandmother how many generations back. I'm like, they can't even, like most of them, can't figure out who their grandmother was like fifth generations back.
Yeah.
So, so then when I was working at the jewelry company, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like, why are they selling all this jewelry just for the price and the prestige of it? Like, there's no emotional attachment to something. There was really not a lot of style at that time. It was just really mostly sold on snob appeal, the cachet of where you bought it, how big the stone is, kind of thing. There's very little about the intricacies of the meaning behind every piece, who owned it, the personality, any of that.
Yeah.
So I thought there were a lot. And jewelry, if you're probably too young to remember, but when I was starting out my business, they had the daytime jewelry and nighttime jewelry. Nighttime jewelry was like fancy diamonds, sparkly stuff you wore to dinner parties for the
Mhm.
wealthy, because most of the wealthy women didn't go outside the home. And the daytime jewelry was like mostly plastic. It's costume jewelry.
Mhm.
There's nothing in between the two, the $20 item versus the $20,000 item. So when I came in the picture, I thought, you know what? There are more people that are, a lot of women are just starting to go outside the home to work. Like I was one of them. And those of us who left our children at home with a nanny, I mean, we just felt, I mean, we were the first generation who actually had jobs with like directors of marketing or manager of something. Most of the women before us were like coffee girls, they were secretaries.
Yeah.
And we made good money, but we all had this guilt feeling about leaving our daughters home. So I marketed to that woman who, had to go to work, that had, the woman who went to work, number one, she had some disposable income. And
Mhm.
number two, she needed to buy jewelry because she needed to look good. She actually had a need because all of us look like little mini men at that time.
Yeah.
We wore like little suits and little, starch iron shirts to work. So there was a definite need for women to have, like have a little bit of a feminine touch to their outfit, and also to sort of, exemplify the fact that they were successful, that they took care of themselves, they had a little sense of style. So nothing ostentatious, but something that's high quality so that they could wear it to work. And then when they were done, they could leave it as an heirloom piece for their daughters. And I wanted it to be very affordable, not something that would, I didn't want to. I'm not a snobby person. I'm, very down to earth. I don't spend money that I don't have, and I don't spend money that I even have because you never know when the rainy day comes from. That's a very immigrant mentality.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? Why don't I offer something that has a lot of meaning, that's going to be timeless, it's going to last them for 50, 60 years, and that they can wear today, for $100 or something in silver and gold, and so that they could have that amazing look and they could feel good about them, so that they save money. So that's how I started my company. I only wanted to make $2,000 a month. That was my American dream scenario,
Right.
but I was only willing to work no more than 20 hours a week because I wanted to be a mom. That's the whole reason. And so and I did it, and I ended up doing pretty amazing business with that business model.
Wow. So how did you get on HSN TV? Like, how did
Yeah,
that happen for
yeah.
you?
So when I started my company, I was really naive. I didn't have any mentors. My parents, worked manual labor jobs. Before that, my mom was a house stay-at-home mom. All the moms, like all the grandmothers before her, were all stay-at-home moms.
Mhm.
And my father was an educator. He was a doctor of Oriental medicine. So I had no business person at all, in my life at all as a role model or somebody I can even go talk to if I was stuck. So when I started my company, I said, I'm only going to work 20 hours a week. I realized quickly that wasn't going to work because if I call somebody at, 9 o'clock in the morning and I say to myself, I'm only going to work, like 9 to noon every day. What if they call you at 4? Are you not going to answer the phone? Or, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you're attached to the hip. So what happened was, also it was really difficult to work those part-time. What happened was I started getting up pretty early in the morning, and I thought, okay, well, um, one thing about like coming from another country, like if you're calling Jamaica, they're in a different time zone than you are. Okay. Like from here to Korea, there's like a 17-hour difference.
Mm.
So what happened was I knew that when I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, that it was noon or daytime somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
So it just happened that 6 a.m. for me is somewhere between like 11 o'clock to 2 p.m. in Europe, depending on which country. There's 57 countries in that European countries. So
Mhm.
I started faxing, major stores in Europe, and I started faxing because faxes, it's only like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
This was before the internet. Before, like, if you call them on the phone, it's like $5 a minute. But if you fax them, it's like so many seconds, and it's like $1, for each email or each fax machine. So I contacted, I created these beautiful drawings. And all the drawings that I used to do, and I still do them, they're beautiful and they're very eye catching. So I
Mhm.
would draw them, and they're black and white. I send it, with a nice little cover letter. So I went to Harrods, London Galleries, all the major stores. And lo and behold, I opened a couple of them. And then once I was in those major stores, like especially Harrods, London, when Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, they all wanted it here. Now, I only worked from 6 a.m. to about 8:45, 8:30, 8:45 every morning. And then I dropped my kids off at school. They were still very young. So, like nursery school is about 8:45, 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
And I came home, had my breakfast, and then I started working East Coast time zone. Like, so LA to New York is 3 hours difference. So, about 10 o'clock in the morning is 1 o'clock in the afternoon for New York. So I would, and I know all that a lot of New Yorkers, they want to be on a train like by 4:30. So I just like work like crazy. And then, as soon as I was done with it, was like Saks Fifth Avenue, Macy's, all those guys are in New York. So as soon as I was done, like faxing those people, calling them, sending them my little letters, I used to type those letters out. At 2 o'clock, I'd pick up my kids. Now at two, I work right through lunch. Between 2 and 8:30, I didn't work. If the phone rang, fax rang, I didn't care. I just didn't work. So, and then at 9 o'clock, after my kids are gone to bed, 9 p.m. California time is about 11 o'clock in the morning in Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, 11 to noon. So I opened up a bunch of stores there, a lot of department stores there. So I had a global business, which, I didn't try to do it. It was like a survival thing. But now when I look back, I mean, it was really a rock solid business model because it didn't matter what happens to the politics, or if there's a war, or if there's a currency problem. My business was so diversified all over the world, and it's like a lot of those stores in Europe, they love American brands, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And then the minute you're in all those stores, a lot of the American stores love having you there because you got a brand that's got a very high exposure in Japan, Paris, London, all these places. So what happened was I got a call from HSN one day. They called me and said, like your designs are so beautiful. It's always on the, like in the Neiman Marcus catalogs every 2 weeks, so consistently. So they called me and asked me if I'd be interested in, going on their show, on their TV. So
Fantastic.
that's how it happened.
Wow. So, oh,
I know, take a breath.
I know it's a lot because you answered some of my questions in, talking about how you balanced your family and work. It was really using the time zones and managing your time against those time zones and what you had to do. So that's how you were able to balance the family life and the business. Now, today, I don't think it's that easy to get into a store. I think back in those days, you could send a fax and maybe it got to the right person, but today there's so much red tape. So now your business has been going on for many, many years. Are you still doing the jewelry business?
I'm still go on TV once a month. So I retired after 20 years on HSN.
Mhm.
Um, Now I'm gonna dial this back a little bit. I don't think it was any easier back then. I
Yeah,
think it's easier today, actually.
really?
Much easier today. Trust me. You have no idea. It's much easier. I get that a lot from people saying how much easier it was back then. Back today, so back then I had to pay for everything. Okay.
Mhm.
Like I had to pay for the fax. There was no social media. So you couldn't get any exposure. You couldn't actually shape who you are. The mentality back then was they bought from major brands like Chanel, Bulgari, or whatever. They don't want to buy from, Keisha Bent or Victoria. Like they don't know who you are.
Right.
So I think that it was much harder. I mean, today, like you're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster. Um, Everything we do today, like our calendar is free. Almost most of the information you want to know about somebody, if you want to do research about Harrods London today, what they carry, you can actually do a virtual store tour. You can do all this research without having to do anything. So I think that back then, like I had to pay for the 1-800 number. I had to pay for everything. So I would say that today things are a lot easier. It's a lot easier because people are a little bit more open minded about, hey, if you got the goods that they want, they'll take it. They'll take a chance on you. It's they love that these buyers today love being the buyer who discovered the new Spanx or the new whatever. They love that. But it is also harder to stand on your own because there is so much competition, so much clutter. All these
Right.
people
That's
that
what I
don't
was
know what
gonna
they're doing.
say. Yeah. I think when I say easy, I don't mean cheaper. I don't mean not a lot of work. I'm sure you worked your butt off, right? But what I'm saying is today I think there's too much noise, there's too much clutter, and the way that we communicate is so convoluted. It's like there's this a middle person. There's a company that can connect you with this, that connect you with that, but you get nowhere. You have to go through trying to find someone's email or whatever. They're getting millions of emails. They have no time to respond to people. Back when it was like mailing a letter, I feel like it was a simpler time. So I just feel like in that sense, it was a little bit easier. Not that you just like snapped your fingers and sent a letter and you were in all these stores, but
Yeah.
it was an easier way. I was watching something where Kris Kardashian or Kris Jenner or whatever, she was talking about how she started with Bruce Jenner.
Yeah.
And she was saying that she also created like paper, I guess press releases or something, or press kits. And she was mailing them to everyone and anyone. Same thing back in the day, there was no other way to get stuff to people. And then people just started calling her back, right? Because this was just such a simple time. So
Well,
that's
actually, I actually met Kris and Bruce Jenner when they were married to each other. In fact, when they first got married, I actually met them at an event.
yeah.
And this was before, like, she did any of that, the merchandising at that time. But let me just tell you, when I started my business, I used to write 50 letters every single day, 50 every day.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would type them. I would do, I didn't write it to everybody. I did, every letter was very tailored. So if you're the buyer of Harrods, I would say, Dear Keisha, you're doing a great job. I saw your, collection. You're doing, it looks like your, A+ collection is this, or B+. So I tell them a little bit about, I know about you a little bit.
Mhm.
And even though you're doing these amazing business with all the fancy necklaces and all the fancy brooches, and, you have all that, I really feel like there is an opportunity for you that may be at the low hanging fruit. If you wanted to have something a little bit more affordable, more wearable, a little bit cleaner lines, that's what I specialize in. Okay. So I would send her a letter like this. I
Mhm.
wrote 50 letters like this every single day. Okay. Now, like when my kids were at school, I used to type them on a typewriter.
Yeah.
And the going rate at that time, they told me, is that you're going to get like 10% of the people who respond to you.
Mhm.
Okay. So out of the 50, you're going to get 5 people to respond to you. Now, that's a response rate, not a purchase rate. So when they respond, 80% of them will say no. So what that means is you're going to get one that's a maybe, that hasn't said, I don't want it.
Yeah.
So 80% of the people, like 90% of the people just ignore you. Okay.
Mhm.
And then 10% of people respond. 80% of those people say, thank you for writing, but we can't use you.
Mhm.
What I do is, like, when people, first of all, that's what all the marketing people said at that time. Okay. And those numbers are pretty true today, by the way.
Yeah.
So if you send out, 10,000 mailers, you're going to get 1,000. Like if you go on Facebook today and you posted something,
Mhm.
only 1,000 people actually see it, because not everybody's seeing every single thing.
Right.
And about 100 people actually hit the like button. So those numbers are very true today.
Yes.
But I will tell you, my response rate was over 60%,
Oh, wow.
because I didn't do a blanket email.
Mhm.
I tailored it to that person. And I explained, what I liked about their current collection. And I explained where I think that there is, opportunity for them to make more money. I didn't never ever badmouth anybody. And then about 80% of the people did say no to me. Okay, when they actually got back to me. But as soon as I get the no, I would call them at that point. I would say, and I usually would call them when I know they're not there. Okay, so like sometimes I'll call at 6 o'clock California time to call like Saks Fifth Avenue buyer, knowing it's 9 p.m. for her time, and I know she's not there. Because when I get on the phone during the day, you're going to get a secretary saying, oh, Keisha's not there, or, she's not available. Can I take a message? You never get back.
Yeah.
But if I leave a voicemail, I can tell them exactly what I want to say. I would not be interrupted. They'll listen to the whole message. So I'll
Mhm.
call them at that point. And I also don't want to have a dialogue with like a gatekeeper.
Right.
So I would say, thank you so much, Keisha, for writing back to me. I know that you can't use, my collection right now, because you told me that, it was too expensive or whatever. You can't use me. first, I want to thank you for taking the time to get back to me because most people don't. Now, if you're the buyer listening to that, you're like, this girl is like so brutally honest, right? Like, most people don't even bother taking the time to, like tell me that they don't like it. So thank you for your time for doing that.
Mhm.
And secondly, you said that, this was too expensive, or you said that, this doesn't fit your company's vision or whatever. Could you just indulge me just for one more minute and let me know if there's anything there that not even one single style that might have any, potential for, something in the future, just because you took the time to get back to me to tell me you don't, want my stuff and why you don't like my stuff. I would love the opportunity to work with you in the future. So what happens is they then get back to you and say, well, half the time they actually haven't even looked at it when they actually said it doesn't fit our vision or it's too expensive. Half the time I mean, I know that because half the time I haven't even given them the price and they said, it's too expensive. So that they haven't looked at it. But by doing that, most people are not cold hearted. Okay. So when you're asking them, I know you see a lot of people, if if you're the buyer of Saks Fifth Avenue, you see the best of the best of the best. I highly, would recommend, respect your opinion. And, I'm just starting out in my entrepreneurship journey. If you can, let me know if there's anything in there. So it now forces them to look at it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they actually find a few things that they really love. And they're like, but they still have to save their face. And they'll go, um, I like page 3, but if you can scale this down a little bit and make that into an earring instead of a pendant and just price it out for me. And so what happens is you have this dialogue with them. Don't ever think you're going to write to anybody and open the door the first time.
Yeah. No.
It'll be a good, I mean, United Airlines, I was in their duty-free, carts and stuff when they used to have duty-free carts there and duty-free shops. I worked with her for probably 4 years. I went to Chicago twice a year for 4 years before I opened the account. Now, when I finally opened the account, you know, I think their first order was like $300,000 a year or something. And I ended up doing more than $1 million a year with them. But you don't ever open it, the first day. So a lot of beginning entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, I'm going to send a bunch of letters and see what comes back. Well, if you use that mentality way back then, you
Mhm.
wouldn't have gotten anywhere and you don't get anywhere today.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that you increase your chances by doing your homework and just really treating your buyers. I mean, they're busy. It's easier for them to just buy some brand name. Like, why would they want to give you a chance if you're a nasty person or if you're lazy or if you don't even care to follow up? But I'm going to tell you one thing about the buyers that I know. And I've sold to all these stores that I mentioned. I've sold to Saks, Bloomingdale's, Lord and Taylor, Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom's, you name it, all of them. The only people I haven't sold to is like Sears, Target, and Walmart. I sold to Amazon, everybody. The one thing I'll tell you is if you're a hard worker and you're energetic, you're optimistic, and even when they say no, like no, like 6 times, you're just not. If you go back and say, well, but you don't understand, like what, mine's the best, and you don't understand, like you have no idea what you're doing, like this is what's happening, and they're like, honey, I know what's happening in my world and I'm not buying it. Okay. But if they say no for whatever reason and you disagree, like I told you, like half the time when they say, well, it's too expensive, I haven't even quoted any price. How do you say it's expensive? Now, instead of saying that, I would actually just, like give her a place to save face. So, but if they say no and you say, I love the fact that you got back to me. I love your honesty. And, like, I'm just curious as to see if there's anything I can do better. Like, the drawing's horrible, or do you think it was going to be too expensive? Is it too heavy? Or does it look, does it need a little bit, did you not like the style? Just give me something that I can work with so I can improve myself. I don't expect you to buy anything from me, even in the future, but, I just want to improve I'm all about improving myself and adding value. Very few people will have the guts to say no to you at that time.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. I
so
love those tips. That's great. That's good advice because I was going to ask you what kept you so focused and determined, like even though people were saying no to you and you just wanted to do your work and raise your family. Why didn't you just say, this isn't going to work? Let me just pay attention to my family and maybe do something else. Like, what made you say, no, my stuff is definitely getting into somebody's store and I don't care. It's going to happen.
I just, my background when I first came to America, I was very lonely. I didn't have any friends. You don't speak English, you don't have any friends. And I was working full time. And, kids are kind of cruel too. Like they see you have no friends and they don't want to be the first friend that you have.
Mhm.
So I think I learned a lot of resilience back then, learning that is there anything, I'm always about like, what is the one thing that I could do for myself to improve myself? And back then, when I was like 13, 14 years old, I didn't speak English. And the first thing I decided to do about myself is learning to speak English. And, there was no English as second language. It's not as easy to learn from Korean to English versus like Spanish to English because there was no Korean people, in LA. Like there were like 6 kids in my school and they were all busy too.
Mhm.
So I, got a English to English dictionary and I started like learning vocabulary. So when I was doing my business, the world, I mean, the jewelry industry is really tough. You have no idea how tough it is. And let me tell you something. I don't care if you're going to Jamaica or you're going to Africa, you're going to Dubai. There is always a Chinese restaurant and there's always a jewelry store next door. It's just like, it's a very high competition thing. And it's also a type of business that requires a lot of capital. Like you can't open a jewelry store with one item. You can just to make a sample, like if you have a real original collection in mind, just to make a sample, it's like $1,000 a piece because gold costs money. So if you make 10 of them, that's $10,000. So I thought to myself, okay, well, it's really stupid for me to go and make like 100 samples with the money I don't have, with the customers I don't have yet, not even knowing if anything's going to sell.
Mhm.
So luckily, I was able to draw. I mean, I can draw beautiful jewelry that looks better than most people's real jewelry, like actual live jewelry, because as I told you, I was already kind of talented in art. So when I came to America and I couldn't speak English the first year, I used to draw to communicate. I used to draw like a toilet. I used to draw like like shoes or whatever, like when I don't have tennis shoes or something. And so the first 2 years, like I became pretty good at this. And then when I went to college and I had a little time for myself, I used to paint to sort of like express my emotions and things like that.
Mhm.
So basically I got pretty good at it. So I like got a portfolio. It didn't bother me that I didn't have any samples to show. I just took my like like a book of drawings and I went to the store near like a Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue on Rodeo Drive. Like you guys probably see them in the movies.
Yeah.
I went over there and I said, I asked for the assistant manager of the jewelry department because the manager I figured would be too busy and could be very harsh on me. But I know usually assistant managers are younger people.
Mhm.
And I would say, I just like passing by, and trust me, I wasn't dressed anything like their customer either, because they walk around with like $10,000 outfits. And I'd say I'm just passing by, but I am I have no money. I don't even belong in the business at all, but I have these drawings and, I dream of working, like a major jewelry studio someday. So, I know you guys see, some great, jewelry. I'm just like really embarrassed to even show this to you, but if you can just kind of look at it kind of quietly and let me know if there's anything, like if I'm just totally off the mark. And she told me, oh my God, these things are absolutely beautiful. Like we could sell this like right now. There's nothing like this out here.
Mm.
And so, so I started doing that. But I think getting back to your question, I'm very resilient. I don't, like when people say no, I just figured everyone's going to say no to me. I mean, people have said no to me for years. Very few people have said yes to me ever.
Yeah.
So I was able, I'm very good at building relationships. I'm a very active listener
Mhm.
and just being able to, focus on myself. I mean, what was I going to do once you started that? The only other thing I could do was to then go and work for somebody else again.
Right.
At that point, I'd be starting at the bottom of the food chain, working even more hours. And that was not an option. I just needed to make this work. And, I think $2,000 a month. it was, that was my goal. And I got to tell you, I think first 18 months, I did over $1 million in the first 18 months. So, that had a whole other challenge, because I didn't have the money to supply that. So that was a whole other challenge. But as far as, understanding how to talk to your customers, potential customers, how to identify your target audience. And the other thing is I really lucked out because there was nothing else out there like that. There's very few things that are affordable. They're really stylized beautifully, with the, amazing originality. Most things that look like a ring looks like a ring, looks like another ring. So I kind of lucked out that way, but I also uh, really spent the time I was going to spend wisely. I didn't just blanket. It wasn't just like a numbers game. A lot of people today will tell you it's a numbers game. Like you get 2% back. They got all these numbers,
Mhm.
and you're like, those are averages. I tell people, you're not average. You're above average. You're better than average. Why would you live with these average numbers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, business is really hard. You have to have thick skin. And like you
Yeah.
said, you have to be resilient because you're going to get a lot of no's before you get that one yes, or maybe two yes.
Well, the other thing too is, Keisha, I'm going to tell you, all your listeners here, okay? I sit here as an immigrant who came here with $30 for 7 people, having done over $500 million by 2017. I haven't updated my bio because at that point it's like a sticker shock over that number. Um, I did this without any investor money, without a lot of advertising. I think I spent like maybe $10,000 in the 30-year career. I will say this: having done that, 90% of the things I tried didn't work. Very few things you do in life is going to actually work. So, I mean, work in a big way, I'm talking about. Okay. So think about it this way. If you're going to learn how to ski, you better learn how to fall, because if you never fall, I mean, if you look at the Olympics, you look at figure skaters, gymnastics, those girls, even during the Olympics, they work their whole lives, they still fall.
Yeah.
Right? Probably fell the day before, like when they were in practice. I mean, it's a miracle they don't fall in the 4 minutes. So, I would, if you look at someone like Michael Jordan, when you look at his percentages of what he, like when he does the, because somebody like Michael Jordan was usually given like a Hail Mary shot, but he doesn't make 50% of his shots. So, and that's the best we have in the world. Um, if you look at these baseball guys, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but if you look at like Babe Ruth or these guys, I mean, I understand that if you're hitting 400 or 500, you're like a legend. Okay, that means half the time you're not making it.
Right.
You're striking out. Okay, so life is the same. Like maybe you fancy yourself as the Babe Ruth of your business, but even so, 50% of the stuff you do is not going to work. So maybe you're not Babe Ruth, maybe you're LeBron James, and you're going to miss 70% of the time. But the point is, most things you try isn't going to work. But should that stop you? Absolutely not. I mean, look at giant companies that are going out of business.
I
I
know.
mean, look at companies like IBM. Has anybody heard about it? I mean, they used to own, there was no other company.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
nobody cares who they are anymore. I don't even know if they're in business anymore. Like we used to, whenever we used to make copies of something, they used to go like, Xerox was like, can you get a Xerox for me? It was a brand name. Nobody even knows that they're in business anymore.
yeah.
People get outdated, right? So I think that, even these giant companies, they have a hard time. So as a small business person, you have everything you need, every single thing you need to become very successful. You just can't give up that easily. Got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, trust me, nobody else will. I know this for a fact. you know, nobody else is gonna believe in you. You have to believe in yourself, and if you stick to it, you got to, first of all, you do have to be passionate about what you do, because
Yeah.
if you're passionate about something, you're gonna find ways to make it work. I mean, you're not gonna ever give up. So I would say that be resilient. Don't be stupid. Like there is a difference between being resilient and being just boneheaded. If you go out and, just be a great listener too. And there's a great quote. I love this quote by Nelson Mandela. He says something like, everything seems impossible until it's done.
Mhm.
So, everything, literally everything seems impossible until it's actually done. Like, this man spent 30 years in prison, and all those 30 years, he never flinched. He never gave up. He was given all kinds of opportunities to get out in exchange for whatever, but he didn't do it because he believed in himself. He said, one day, whether I'm dead or alive, the 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 country that I envision is gonna, become a reality.
Mhm.
And so, you know, everything seems impossible, whether that's just getting a new client or starting your business, taking it to a next level. Everything seems impossible, but not getting it done is not an option.
Right.
That's the one thing. The other thing too is, if you get the common thread about everything that I've said so far, um, the other quote that I love is, Maya Angelou has this amazing quote, and I'm sure you've heard of it. Is that, people will forget what you've done, people forget what you say to them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So when a buyer says no, expect a no. Don't even expect a yes. A buyer that says yes right away, they're either stupid or they don't know what they're doing. They should say no to you. Okay, they should say no to you. You gotta, they don't know who you are. Okay.
Right.
They don't know if it's going to sell. They don't know if you're a shyster. They don't know if you have a lot of experience. They don't know who you are. You're starting out. Okay. They should question you. So basically expect a no. But when they say no, be professional. You are not in the driver's seat, right? You are at their mercy, and you basically try to negotiate with them, ask them, respect them, respect their opinion, because you know what? You can sit there and say, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's, 25-year-old graduate of whatever. She thinks she's on top of the world. She doesn't know what she's talking about. That may be true, but she still has the pen that writes the PO. She knows what she's talking about. It's like the little lady at Walmart. You know, that lady at Walmart clipping coupons may not understand like what's going on in the world. Maybe she doesn't even care, but she knows her world. She knows what she wants, right? She knows which maple syrup she's going to get, and
Right.
she's
You know how
going
to
to
get
get
that
that.
flavor.
Okay. She's going to get that there. So just kind of like, treat her the same way that you'd want to be treated. Respect her time, respect her opinion, and present it in such a way that, you're trying to collaborate with her, not necessarily, and just build a relationship. Just say, you know what? I love the fact that you're sharing, your opinion, even if it's not for me. Like that makes me better. That makes me want to work harder for you. And I'll tell you something, 90% of the people I write to, they don't even bother that. They just ignore, they don't even know I exist in the world. I love the fact that you took the time to write back to me. You even spelled my name correctly. I love that. you know, you know, just like, how hard that is. So,
Right.
and it's true. Like she took the time to write back to you. So I guess I want to say be grateful for everything you have, including those negative letters,
Mhm.
and try to work with that. And you'd be amazed how many people actually really have a hard time saying no to somebody who's trying that hard, who's that nice, who's got a decent product. And you go, I'm in a position where, maybe I don't give her $1 million order, but maybe I just tell, give her a little corner in front of the bathroom because that space is just empty anyway. Maybe I tell her like, she can display her stuff for, 2 weeks and see if she can sell anything. She could at least go advertise the fact that she was at Neiman Marcus or she was at whatever, even if it was just 2 weeks, she could do that. Maybe that's my gift to her. And you
Right.
can work with that. That's what I had a Nordstrom's buyer who did that for me. Like, I literally had a little table in front of the bathroom and I outsold every brand, believe it or not,
Wow.
because I had the table there and I knew unless somebody was going to the bathroom, and when they're going to the bathroom, of course, they're in a rush to get into the bathroom. So I would just walk over to the jewelry counter and I would say, hey, like, nice meeting you, and I have a little booth over there and it's just like right over there. If you're I would just love some opinions, like you're really dressed nicely and everything. And I'm starting my company out. I love some opinions on that, and I'm having like a little drawing at the end of the day. And those people came in and bought stuff. I didn't have to wait in front of the bathroom the whole time. So just be resourceful and just be nice. And, they will throw you a bone.
Yeah. Sounds
Don't go for everything up front.
yeah, I love it. All right. So tell me about this writing career you're starting now.
Yeah, I love that. So I retired up. So but coming from my background, okay, like what I just wanted to make $2,000 a month. I got to the point in 2004, it was like 17 years ago, that I had more than enough money that I ever thought it would be. Like it was just ridiculous that I was still going to work. So I tried to retire back then. And I retired in 2004 because my contract with HSN was up at that time. And I chose not to renew it. And then they were like, oh my God, no, you can't do that. You can't retire. Like, we really need the business, blah, blah, blah. So then I stayed another 10 years. They did make my life a lot easier. So I didn't have to work as hard. So I worked for 10 more years. And then when that was done, I definitely didn't want to renew because, I wanted, there was other things I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I wrote my first book, which is a science fiction, and I love to read because that's how I saw the world when I was in Korea. And then when I came to America, I was in East Los Angeles. I didn't have the means to travel. Plus, I just had this curiosity about how other people live, and I was always looking for an escape because my life, wasn't all that great. So I still read about 30 books a year. I used to read a lot more, but I used to read about a book a week. But now I'm down to about 30 books a year. So I wrote this book, and in trying to market this book, I presented to a bunch of different publishers, and I got in front of HarperCollins, Random House, all these publishers, and they were all like, "Wait a minute, like, aren't you the woman on TV?" And I said, "Yes." And they're like, "Well, why aren't you writing a self-help book?" And I said, "Well, what would I help people with?" And they're like, "You have this amazing career. People love you. They know who you are. They'll buy, you got over 10 million women who's bought something from you here in America. And, like they are very emotionally connected to you." And I said, "That's a stupid reason to write a book because just because they're connected to me, like I need to have a really good reason for me to write the book."
Mhm.
So I didn't write it so I wrote the book in 2017, the science fiction. So what happened was when COVID hit, I started to give a lot of webinars, kind of like, like what the conversation that you and I having with a lot of, young entrepreneur moms about, um, like how to get this done, or how do I get visibility, or how do I launch a product. So I did all these webinars like every day, all free webinars just for every organization there was. And then one day I was looking at it and I thought, you know what? I think I have something to give.
Mhm.
And maybe I write the book and let them decide if they want to read the book and learn something. So I wrote the book. It's called $1 Million Passion. And then I started a podcast, which is kind of like a little mini mastermind class. There's a lot of people in my pod, like $1 Million Passion. It's all about transformation. I don't give, because I feel like a lot of the information, like if you want to know how to do digital marketing, if you want to know how to build a sales funnel, if you want to know how to do whatever, it's all on Google. You couldn't get, I mean, there's a lot of bad information too, but you actually could get information free. Transformation is something that's special.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of people, like I have a guest every week, and most of the people that I interview do not have a college degree. They just like grind it out, and they had a vision. They never gave up, kind of like my story, but they're all like these multimillionaires with their passion that they've turned into. So I just really enjoy doing that. And my book is going to be published. I know I was going to self-publish this, and then I ended up with an agent who kind of wanted me to go through the publisher route. So right now it's gone through 8 different revisions, but they actually did make it very much better.
Mhm.
They've like upped the game. So there's a lot of information about like website basics, what kind of stuff you need to have. A lot of small business owners don't know that, and they end up building 3, 4, 5 ones before they actually get to the next level. And also storytelling. I think that today this is the one thing that I think that's changed from when I first started my business to today. Today, a lot of businesses want an entrepreneur with a story. They want to push an entrepreneur, like who has an amazing story, who has passion behind it, who makes your life better with a cause,
Right.
right? So being able to tell your story, like, if you, for example, if you launched something,
Mhm.
your story is very powerful. Your story about, like immigrant, you talk about immigrant stories a lot, but having, someone like a real person in front of you, coming from Jamaica, and, you think that either you become so totally assimilated to American life, so you even forget that you came from Jamaica. I mean, especially for you, like you didn't even come from Jamaica. You actually, your parents came here.
Yep.
Just understanding, and we are now living in this very multicultural environment. So if you came up with something that takes you back to those roots
Mhm.
and said something like, you know what, like my parents who came from Jamaica talks about Jamaica all the time. And you know what? When I got into it, I just so love the culture. And there's one thing that I feel like that every American should have. And I ended up incorporating, whatever. Those kinds of personal stories are really your biggest advantage you have over giant corporations, because giant corporations, they have a tough time looking like they're lovable, caring people. They're it's hard to think of Coca-Cola as this lovable, kind, caring person who you can identify with.
Mhm.
And they got a great brand on their own. They don't need any help. But if you came up with, something like, oh my God, like I've got this, like something that's even better than a skinny margarita. And, I love the Jamaican life. They love this festive, all this stuff. And my grandma used to make this, and, I came up with this thing that's better than anything, any, carbonized soda. They're more likely to help you with that. So I've been giving all these, like free webinars on storytelling, on positioning your brand, on the brand story, brand identity, because those things all matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love, what I'm doing now, and I'm actually paying it forward.
Nice. That's the way to do it. I love that.
It's me out
So,
of trouble.
yeah, right? Because, well, I mean, you deserve some time too to just kind of sit back and, absorb all that you've accomplished. I mean, like, you have an amazing story. You worked really hard and you've done a lot. And I hope you're enjoying it as well. Not just,
But the other piece of my life too is I'm a very grateful person. I believe that, I had a lot of divine intervention in terms of like, I was very lucky. I got lucky. I'm very lucky person. I ended up with a lot of lucky moments, in my career.
Mhm.
Lucky things, pieces of luck that kind of happened to me. So I don't take anything for granted. And coming from where I came from too, like not just from Korea, but to, growing up in East LA where, people were poor, there were gunfights, all this stuff happening every day. I have a lot of empathy for people who don't have the opportunity. The one thing I'll tell you, like when I was growing up in East Los Angeles, I mean, there was like riots all over the place. Um, it's, we didn't have money. We didn't have any friends. There was a lot of things we didn't have. But the one thing I did have was my family. I had people who believed in you. Even though they had no reason to believe in me, they still believed in me. And that's huge, right? Because a lot of people today don't even have that.
Yeah.
Or they'll have money, but but they're suffering emotionally from other things. So I don't take anything for granted ever. And I have a lot of empathy for people who don't have it. So when I design jewelry today, that's why I'm still on TV, because I have my business. I always sold to the Hollywood crowd when I was way back in LA, but now I still do that. I still have the $15,000 and up customer. Like I have two different websites for that.
Mhm.
15,000 to $250,000 or whatever. It's like money is no object kind of people. But I also, when I'm on TV, I might sell something for $100, and my customer might have to pay like pay like a five payments in a value pay like five. They might have to take $20 a month for five months. To me, that person who pays $20 a month, 5 months, I have more of a responsibility because that person is giving you a lot of trust, because
Yeah.
they can only buy one thing, but she's choosing to buy it from me. I would never, just because they're paying lower money, try to cut corners or do less desirable, type of design. Like they deserve more.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love the fact that I'm able to do both. And I do, I welcome my granddaughter. My daughter is 29 years old and she just had a baby last year.
Oh,
And so, I still see my mom very, like very often. And my daughter, like they lived 2 miles down the street. So I see them every day.
hmm.
And I spent a lot of time, with what I want to do. So I still only really don't work that many hours now. That's the one thing. Like my whole goal to starting out my business was so I can spend more time, and that has never changed. Like
Right.
the one thing I'll tell you about, we talked about time, balancing time.
Hmm.
When you're a young entrepreneur and you're doing everything, and you come to your office and you got like 20 things to do,
Hmm.
um, what I do is like, don't try to get all 20 things done, because when you write them all down and you got 20 things done and you're like, okay, I got to get a haircut and I got to get this done. I got to, pick up groceries for so and so, all this stuff. What happens is you drive and you go, oh, that's a 5 minute job. And this is a 10-minute job. And this is 15. You know what? Don't do that. Go. What I do is I look at the ones that actually have to get done that day, that brings me the most potential for money. I do those jobs first. And I usually put them way up, like at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
Anything else, if I can fit it in, fine. And if I can't fit in, it's okay. If I don't pick up the dry cleaners, if I don't pick up groceries, no, you're not going to starve. Most people have canned food in the pantry. Like you're not going to starve to death that day. That's a fact. You know? And most people can actually stand to lose a few pounds.
Right, exactly.
So, so basically, you have to learn to prioritize what you can do in the time you're willing to work with. That's it. So that's, you're not going to get everything done. But what's going to happen is when you find that some things on your calendar that got transferred over from last Friday and today is Tuesday, it's still there. You haven't gotten it done. It's probably not that important. Think about that.
Yeah, that's
Probably
definitely.
not that important. And
I like.
the other thing I'll tell you is, the one thing that I coach a lot of people like for free, and I also do them for pay. The people that I actually have the hardest time with is, how some people just can't make a decision.
Mhm.
They like analyze it, they can't make a decision. And well, maybe tomorrow, maybe I gotta take a look at this again, whatever. Make a decision. Any decision is better than no decision, because when you don't make a decision, then other people make decisions for you.
Mm.
I'll tell you, this happened to me this week. So my buyer from my new shopping channel, it's called Shop HQ. It used to be Shop NBC, but you can go to shophq.com and download all the stuff. It's on all the major TV channels. Anyway, he called me January 30th or so and said, we want you to work a little bit more hours, and we want to expand your line, blah blah blah. Okay, so I said, okay, this sounds good. So they're gonna kind of like increase my business substantially this year. So I called up one of my dear friends, and I said, okay, you have an opportunity to make extra $500,000 this year. They're looking for a lot more products, and they're looking for a new category, which this guy specializes in. But I need it like yesterday. Okay, they want to launch this April, and this is already February. We still have to dig out the stuff from Africa, put all these places, and it has to be made in Thailand. Come over here. So we have no time, but like, see what you can do. Well, I called him like February 4th, from when I left my buyer's office in Tucson. So I didn't hear back from him for like a week. And I thought, well, maybe like somebody got sick or something, because it's not like him. So I called him and said, hey, like, I don't know if you got my first message or not, but like, we really need this. Like, I need you to start presenting. Got a hold of him. He goes, yeah, yeah, we'll do it. Well, he didn't do it. So what happened was, as of yesterday, one of his competitors presented a 50-page proposal on all the things they could do. So that guy got signed up. my other friend, I've known him for like 30 years, and he like didn't have an excuse. Like, he had to take his, daughter to college or whatever. It's fine, but like that's been like 3 weeks now.
Right.
So he just said, I can't get to it right away. I'm going to delegate to somebody, or, I can't do the whole thing, but let me just give me a slice of something or something, anything. He
Mhm.
didn't do it. So this other vendor ended up walking away with all the orders. So when he emailed me, like literally today, I just said, it's a little late. And the buyers have what they call the open to buy. They get given a certain amount of money to buy for that month. Well, his open to buy is gone now. So when you don't make a decision, he didn't know which girl to put on the account, whatever. So, he was interviewing a bunch of people. Okay, fine. But when you don't make a decision, what happens? You don't have to make a decision anymore because the decision's been made for you.
Right.
So I would say that when you have 20 things to do, make a decision. You will make mistakes. There's so many things in life you don't have. There's no right or wrong. There's just a better or worse, but there's no right or absolute right or wrong. So if you don't make a decision, somebody else will make it. So your decision becomes irrelevant. So make a decision. And the other thing I'll say is any decision you make, if you don't execute it well, then you might as well just have made a bad decision. So make sure that you execute your decision well. And what that means is make the decision that, like if you play golf or tennis, some people are, oh my God, like, do I get the 3 club out or this club out or whatever? They go back and forth, they look at the line like 50 times. But you know what? It doesn't, if you make a decision, I always say, go with the club you know you can hit well, even though it may not give you the distance or whatever. At least you're not going to be in trouble, moving forward. And that's, the point I'm making is a lot of young, brand new entrepreneurs, they think if they make bad decision, oh my God, I'm going to go bankrupt. Or, well, what if not, I make a decision, somebody doesn't like me? Well, too bad. They're not going to like you anyway. you know,
Make
I
a
mean,
decision.
seriously. No, I'm not saying that they're not going to like you because you suck or anything. I mean, I did suck in the beginning, but um, when they look at you next to Chanel or they look at you under every other brand, they're not going to like that option unless you give them a reason to like you.
Right.
And usually that comes down to your grit, your willingness to outwork them, your willingness to work with them, and make them shine. I always, even though I'm a pretty good, when it comes to designing jewelry, I think I'm pretty good at this. I mean, obviously, you don't do the kind of numbers I've done by being real bad at something,
Right.
but and maybe I'm not the best. I'm pretty good at this, but I always give the credit to my buyer. Even though I gave her 100 designs and she picks the right 30,
Mhm.
um, because usually I'll have a heart. Like I know which 10 is going to really make 80% of my money, but I give her 100 to choose from. And sometimes some buyers will choose something that it's probably not going to sell that well, but in that case, I'll just say, like, are you sure you want to do this? Because Saks Fifth Avenue is selling this, and blah blah saying selling that. It's kind of like out there already. You want to go out right, with something a little bit more original. You try to talk to them, but by the end of the day, like when you actually do have something, you have $1 million day or something.
Mhm.
I always say, you know what? Even though I gave you 100 pieces, you picked the right 10 that actually made all the money. I mean, you're an amazing buyer. I'm so grateful to have you as my buyer, so that's kind of like brainstorm. So I try to get her involved, like really emotionally, like invested in what you do. Cause I always give credit to everybody, like my host, my producer, my manufacturer, just everybody. Because
Yeah.
without all of those people around you, you're not going to be very successful.
Yeah, it takes a village for sure.
Yeah, in my case, more than that, but you know.
Right. Well, I want you to now share an oh hell no moment with us that has taught you something or changed your perspective on something in your life. It could be, something recent, it can be an old moment, but it just needs to be a moment that kind of put things into perspective for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I should have a whole other show for this, but I'm gonna pick one. I'm
Make a
gonna pick
decision.
one. Yeah, I'm gonna pick one because it's relevant to beginner entrepreneurs. When I first started out, this happened to me, and like really, I'm kind of glad it happened to me when it did. So what happened was, I told you how I started out. I didn't have money to make samples. So I
Mhm.
had all these drawings. And from what I understand, everybody told me, whoever saw them said, oh my God, these are like so strikingly beautiful. Like no designs like this actually exist out there. So like, they can buy it. When I then went to looking for manufacturers, I went to 6 different manufacturers. Okay. And every manufacturer, like 2 or 3 of them said, like, if we make this, how many can you sell? And being so naive, I said, I don't know. I can sell one, two, it could be 1,000. I have no idea. And I didn't have any idea. I was like a dumb girl, trying to do something. And I would have been happy just selling one. Um, so they're like, well, okay, in that case, I'm gonna have to charge you like $1,000 a piece. And I'm like, okay. So I go to the next guy. So they all kind of like asked me like, how many can you sell? But the point is, they kind of knew that I didn't have money. So designs were beautiful, and they knew the designs would sell because I just told them that, like Saks Fifth Avenue and Neiman Marcus buyers wanted to buy this from me. So they already knew that it would sell.
Mhm.
What did they do? They made the samples. They never sent them to me. They sent it to my competitors.
Oh my God.
Oh, hell no.
Yes, that is an oh hell no.
Yeah. So that's why I told you I had a lot of divine intervention because um, one of my buyers. So we have a industry. The jewelry industry has a huge trade show. This happens in June every year. So actually, this one used to be in New York, and then it just moved to June. But back then it was in New York. But anyway, my buyer was walking all the floors of the trade show. There's like 10,000 vendors. She's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Like she and I were supposed to meet, like just to, because she was trying to tell me, like I had like a 15-minute appointment with her. And she said, that stuff you showed me? I go, yeah. She goes, it's already at this other booth. Why did they have that? And she kind of believed me because I was so naive. She knew that I wouldn't lie to her. It's like, I mean, I was like, I told her I have no idea what I'm doing. I just, so what happened was, she said, so she asked them, like, why do you, like, this is, because I had the original drawings in my bag.
Mhm.
So she goes, well, why do you have this? So what happened was, those manufacturers knew that even if I got an order from Saks like for $50,000 or something, I didn't have the money to finance that. So, and they knew that. So they went to a competitor that they were already doing business with, that they were already shipping on a regular basis, that they knew they could get the order out of. So the thing is, the buyer knew that the original designer was me. And so she said, you know what? Like, I'm not going to buy it from them because I know for a fact that these people are shysters. So that's a very lucky thing that happened to me because most buyers would have just gone with whoever, because there's a lot of pressure for those buyers to buy the new thing and just run it and go. But
Right.
this buyer, she and I are still very good friends. She just said, it didn't belong to those people. They had no business getting that. So from that point on, now I don't ever give my manufacturers like the whole design. I actually will, I did almost everything I design is done by modular design. So I'll have a piece of it, like if I'm doing a ring and the side view is like, I would have like the circular part from another company. And so I basically don't have, I don't take that risk anymore. But
Yeah.
that really hurt my feelings. And I used to think like, God, these people are so cruel, like they already make a lot of money. But it just opened my eyes, a lot. But I mean, let me tell you something. You're a young businesswoman doing like really great. You cannot believe the vultures that they come and just like take advantage of you.
Yeah, it's sad. So when you get an order from a buyer, you have to pay to fill that order and then you give it to
At
them
risk. Yeah.
and then they pay you or they don't pay you until they sell it. How does that work?
Yeah, both ways. Now a lot of no, I got paid. So like a net 30. So
Mm.
like basically 30 days after they got the shipment, they have to pay me.
Okay.
But a lot of buyers will try to have you ship it and not pay until they actually sell it. Now, what if they don't sell it? You're stuck with that. I
Yeah.
used to tell people like I'm not a banker, like I'm a simple designer, like and if you don't have any risk, so like if I give you 100 designs and you can only sell two, it's usually the ones that they don't put them in the like major showcase because there's no rush to sell it,
Hmm.
take all the risk, right? So I didn't sell those people. I didn't sell anybody with guaranteed sale or consignment ever.
Got
I'd
it.
rather just walk away from that business.
Yeah. Wow. You're a wealth of knowledge. I think you have like five more books in you.
No, the two I wrote, I'm happy with. I am actually writing a sequel to the first one because they had asked me to write a 3-book series. So I'm actually in my second book of that. And then the $1 Million Passion, I just finished it like yesterday, the 8th revision yesterday. And I am told it's a final revision. So hopefully it'll be done. But I think the $1 Million Passion is going to be a fabulous book for, I mean, I share so much information that, first of all, it's interesting, Keisha. Like, do you know that most people, one of the things that I have to do is I have to write to them why my book is different than everything that's out there, all this stuff. I found out that in the entrepreneurship space, like how to start a business and grow it and scale it, the top 5 books on Amazon, they get first one was written by a professor who's never actually run a business, which is kind of
Mm,
interesting.
really?
He never had to like write a paycheck or anything, so that doesn't count. Uh, second one does like digital, like it was only digital, like he sells digital information. And, at the end of the book, it talks about how he's invested all his money in real estate because he's made the money and he's made all this money. So obviously he didn't believe in his business because why would you take the money and put it in real estate? you know,
Right.
all that. Um, and the rest of the people, like they really haven't run a business or started one or like had gone through the hardships that I've had to go through it. I mean, I've had like a lot of screw ups, trust me. Um, so, I think that understanding how to launch a product properly, how to tell your story, and how you can use that story as a clear advantage over any big corporation. I can go head to head, against anybody. And also just the basic stuff functionally. If you're running a physical store, the type of, every entrepreneur needs to have at least 3 products: your key signature product that like your flagship product, the core product that you're known for, and then, the middle ground where you're going to actually make the money, and then the loss leader. So like all those things that I used to grow my business, essentially part-time, really. I put it in this book so that other people can elevate and amplify their voice and their expertise so that they can monetize it.
Nice. Well, it was such a pleasure talking to you today and listening to your journey. I really learned a lot, and I can't wait for that book to come out.
Yeah. So any of you, I mean, you included, if you want to come to any of my free webinar, I don't do a lot of them.
Mhm.
Just because I want to spend a lot of time with my family. I don't do a lot of them, but when I do, I try to limit it to like no more than 30 people for the webinar. But they're usually very meaningful webinars that you will find from nowhere else, but there. And you can come to victoriawick.com, and then you can sign up for any of the webinars or free. I have got 2 free ebooks actually, and you should download both of them because those are both very, very, very helpful for anybody who's already in business. And then for, so and you can obviously listen to my podcast, $1 Million Passion podcast. So, you guys can, anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, I would love to be able to come back to this show a year from now
Yes.
and have somebody call in or write to you and say, you know what, I listened to that crazy Victoria woman one day and I just like got off my butt working like crazy and I just made my first $1 million. Isn't that amazing? I would love that. I would love, like 10 of you to call in or write and say, you changed my life because it's not as it's not easy, but it's not as hard as you think it is.
Mhm.
It's just common sense.
Yeah.
So
I would love that too. So we'll definitely hold you to that. and we will look for the people who are going to get their lives changed by listening to your advice, hopefully myself included.
I was gonna say, you were gonna say I'm gonna be the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's my train of thought.
And the other thing too is, believe it or not, after you make the first million, the next 10 it's half the time,
Mm,
because you've already gotten the system, you already understand what you're doing. And then from there to the 100 million is even less.
wow.
So, like once you understand what's working, you're basically trying to figure out what's working. You're like, if you're building a car, you're trying to figure out, okay, what kind of, do I need a tire? Do I need 3 tires? Do I need four? Do I need double? You're making all the decisions, but once you make that, and then you can actually build it and you can accelerate. And so once get all the basics going, I have very strong ideas on what small businesswomen today, who's got a family or who's got dreams of maybe, learning how to, I don't know, kayak or whatever that you guys do, other things in life, to the 5 basic things you're going to need to really succeed. And if you don't have all 5, you are not going to succeed in
Mm,
today's environment. You definitely do need to have at least those 5 things for sure. And they're not, brain surgery, they don't cost money. So come and
okay.
listen, and I love to meet all of you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for coming on the Oh Hell No podcast.
Thank you.